The 5 reasons why people lose money buying Malaysia properties is because they are sheeps. So the first one, the S stands for, the people who bought property and lose money in Malaysia are people who actually buy in Malaysia, but they use Singapore mindset to evaluate an investment. They think market buying behavior is the same. They think the tenant behavior is the same. They think that the product perception is the same. And this is my favorite, they often compare to Singapore property prices. Because the reality is that if you compare anything in Malaysia versus Singapore, everything will look cheap. And developers love to use this, right? To convince you guys to go and buy cheap Malaysia property. Because everything compared to Singapore becomes very, very cheap. 900 ringgit per square foot in Malaysia is obscene in Johor and Medini. But for Singaporeans, only 300 Sing dollar per square foot. That's how thousands and thousands of people went in and bought Johor Bahru, went in and bought Medini many years ago, comparing it to Singapore prices. You have to understand one thing, the local Johorians, local Malaysians don't like high-end condos. Okay, they don't like high-end condos. They will never pay anything above 500 ringgit per square foot, right? Which every single 1% that I know that lost money actually paid above 500 ringgit per square foot. So the locals will never pay above 500 ringgit per square foot for an apartment, okay? Or a condo. So the moment that you think that the buying, the staying, the perception behavior is the same, you already commit the first mistake. And that will lead you into a unprofitable land. So that was the first mistake, using Singapore mindset to actually purchase something in Malaysia. You can't. You gotta go back, right? You gotta use the local mindset to determine whether this property is worth buying or not. Okay? So that's mistake number 1 out of 5. Now, mistake number 2 is this thing called the herd mentality. H, right? So first we start with S just now. Now it's H, herd mentality. This is basically following people to go and buy, right? So what I notice here is that it's very momentum, very herd-driven mentality of buying. When we interview people who lost money buying in Malaysia, we often find out that they didn't do much of a research. They actually follow family member, friends, people that they know who actually bought Malaysia property at that point of time because they bought the story, they think it's cool. You know, potentially is a bragging right to be able to go and say, you know what, I own property overseas, right? So Malaysia technically overseas, right? So therefore, buying because of herd mentality, right? So this happened in a very astonishing way many years ago when, you know, Iskandar Putri in Johor Bahru and Medini was the flavor of the day. And a lot of people are paying 700, 800, 1,000, 1,200 ringgit per square foot. So you paid an inflated price because everyone was buying and it was cool to buy at that point of time. When the reality here is that you want to buy it when no one is buying like today. So today, if you talk to any average Singaporean, you know, or Malaysia PR out there, right, talking about Johor Bahru and Medini, who will tell you, no, I would rather buy Kuala Lumpur. I would rather buy something in Singapore as my second property. This is the time to buy, right? Because today you can buy it at 50, 60, 70% discount. But because of herd mentality, when everyone is brave, I'm also brave. When everyone is scared, I'm also scared, right? Therefore, people don't make rational decision when they follow the herd. Like a sheep, right? And PS, by the way, right? If you see a developer marketing a property in Singapore, you can be rest assured that that property was a leftover unit that no Malaysian wants to buy. And they are hoping, right? An unknowing buyer out of Singapore, right, looking to buy a property will buy one. Because no Malaysian will touch it, okay? Our durian, normally we send the highest quality to Singapore. So we get second grade, third grade of Musangking, right, in Malaysia, right? And we don't mind because, you know, we don't pay Singapore prices for durian, right? But our properties, we don't send you the best ones, right? We send leftover ones normally. So be careful, especially when you see a project being marketed in Singapore, okay? The third one is the E, right? Which is the entry and exit. When you look at the people who lost money in Iskandar and Medini, Johor Bahru, okay, it's very clear that every single one person who actually lost money, right, on top of using Singaporean mindset to evaluate the deal, right, not doing their own diligence and basically follow the herd to go and buy. But they also got the timing of entry and exit completely wrong. For me, the time to buy anything in Johor, Medini will be 2 years, 3 years prior to the MRT between JB and Singapore to be completed. Anytime before that is too early. And of course, post MRT is too late. Most people who lost money in the last 10 years buying Singapore property, I can assure you, they all didn't buy today. They bought 5 years ago. They bought 10 years ago. They are buying the future story, but they didn't pay the current price point. They buy future story at future price, right? So it's a lot of years, a couple of years too early due to emotional, right, driven decision, which is, well, again, using herd mentality. So all emotional entry often leads to emotional exit. So you're not going to be able to go make money the moment you do this. So they got the entry wrong, timing-wise. They got the exit wrong, timing-wise. If you try to exit today, you are going to be selling at 30, 40, 50% cheaper compared to the actual price point that you bought 5, 10 years ago. Like I said, today, my deals in Johor, I'm buying at 50% discount, 60% discount. The highest I'm getting is 70% discount, right? Versus the price point in 2014, 2013. So I believe that we are now entering at the right market, perfect market, right? Because the MRT between GB and Singapore should be ready in 2026. Now is the time. 10 years ago was a little too early, okay? And if you want to exit, you want to exit 3 to 4 years after the GB MRT to Singapore is completed and fully operational, because at that point of time, there will be a sizable number of people who are working in Singapore who would use the MRT to travel. The rental market will be very different, which also means the capital gains today will also be very different. You see the logic? When you don't use emotional, you don't buy the herd, you buy based on facts and data instead of news and emotion. So this is the third reason why people lose money buying in JB. Obviously, it's about the economics or the numbers, right? So basic questions like who's going to rent from us when we buy a property and how much can they pay, right? Who can we exit this property to, right? How big is our demand? What is total addressable market for such rental, for such price point? So these are basic, right? The not so basic will be who is the competition within similar category? Because if you have too many supply, all similar looking units competing for the exact same small pool of tenants, right? You're going to end up with a price war. So it's very important to understand who's the competition within similar category and to also understand what's the total current and upcoming supply. So most people who buy might have a hint of number 1 and number 2, right? But more often than not, they fail to address the last. They don't understand how big is the demand. Who's the competition in similar category? What's the current and upcoming supply? So when you don't get this right, you don't get the numbers right, you often have to pay a very heavy price, right? Because you didn't do the due diligence upfront. But that's why today you see very weird. People paid 1 million ringgit for a property, rental is 1,800 ringgit. The rental yield is 2% in Malaysia, when the borrowing cost is today 4%. It's negative cash flow by a couple of $1,000 per month. But, for people who bought years ago at 1 million ringgit, they're going to be losing 2,000 to 3,000 ringgit per month. Almost 1,000 Sing negative cash flow every month. But today, when we are buying at 350,000, 400,000, our repayment is less than 2,000. We are able to break even. So you see what I mean? And at the rental of 1,500 to 2,000, the market is big enough to absorb the existing supply. So that's the importance of economics and numbers. And of course, these are the reason why people don't make money buying in Johor and Medini. ultimately is about the price. If you enter 1 million buying the existing property, when me and my client today are buying the exact same property at 400,000, your repayment will be 1.5 times more expensive compared to me. I can rent at 2,000 and break even. You rent the same 2,000, you're going to lose 2,000 ringgit per month. So when you overpay, it's basically the final nail in the coffin. So you gotta make sure when you buy a property in Johor Bahru, in Medini, in Malaysia, you have to remember that your entry price is very important. If you pay a foreigner price, you are screwed. So it's very important, guys, that you do not pay a foreigner price or a foreigner premium. You want to pay what is the local is willing to pay. Better still, if you can get it cheaper than the locals, it's even better, right? So just remember, when you buy the right price point, you make money on the buy, not when you sell. Because you already bought at 50, 60, 70% below bank value, right? In a way, you are guaranteed of being able to go and make money. And here's the best part. Even when you sell, and let's say at 300,000, 400,000 ringgit profit, you could potentially pay 0 taxes of this. Interesting. Eh? So make sure you buy the right price point. You enter the lowest price possible so that you can continue to be competitive in renting. You can continue to be competitive when you want to sell. Because, like I said, for the same property that we bought for 400,000, if you pay 1 million, you got to wait 20 years before you will actually see any form of capital gain. I might have to wait only 5 years to make 100,000. Get it? Right? So your entry price is very, very important. So in short, you got to avoid the pitfall of becoming a sheep. Every single person that you know of who lost money buying property in Malaysia, they are a sheep. Okay? Don't make the same mistake, because what happens to sheep? Eventually, they all get slaughtered.